Hello, pioneers. Today we're going to talk about making roads. They're surprisingly easy. Let's get going. In order to cover our roads, we're going to cover a couple things. We're going to cover how to do curved roads very briefly. Then we're going to cover how to deal with the pillars on the straight roads, and then how to deal with inclines and then curved roads. And there's two methods for curved roads. We have a quick method and we have a more advanced method. All right. Making roads is actually kind of well known in Satisfactory. We've had curves very well, especially since update 5. There's a few methods for doing it. I'm kind of going to gloss over them and not cover them in depth in this video, but I will provide some links in the description below for more detailed versions of it. One of the original methods for doing curves in Satisfactory has been around for a long time. It was made easier in update 5. I would generally call the radial method. In this case, if you had a 3-lane road, you'd probably start, if we're going to turn left, we want to start on the inside. And so with this, we'd probably go out about 8 foundations, making this a total of maybe 11 out. And then we just go down by 1 and come out. And then you can get rid of all this. And from there, you can rotate maybe 5 degrees per time. You just need to get a little bit. And then you just do another 5 degrees. Delete some of this. Another 5 degrees. And so on and so forth. From there, you just extend out to your edge of your road. And delete the excess. It works. It's about a 5-degree turn. You can do a 10-degree turn, I believe, and it'll be like 7 foundations out or something. But that's basically, that one's been around for a while. It's great for using buildings, great for doing large circular buildings. You can do a lot with it. One of the newer methods used in update 5 is generally called the DC method. And this is, again, we want to start on the outside of the turn. So if we're turning left, we'd start on the right. And this one is really good because it actually helps you pivot right on the tip or the corner of the foundation you're trying to do. So you would drop a catwalk and then you clip in so that the middle of the foundation's on the corner. Then you go up by 1, rotate. Every click is 5 degrees. So let's go 10 this time, so 2 clicks. And then we put another catwalk down. Bring this back in so the tip of this corner is touching the center again. And then from there, you would just put one back down to the bottom. You can erase all this. And then you have one. And the nice thing about this is that it connects right on the corner, and you can zoom in. Let me repeat a couple times for demonstration. This is a 10-degree turn, but you could have done a 5-degree turn just like that one. It would have been similar, but not exact. Now, the method that we're going to primarily use in this video is the catwalk method, which is definitely the easiest for doing turns, but is not necessarily ideal for everything. Unlike the foundation methods, you can only do 10-degree clicks with this. So each one is 10 degrees. So we can't do a 5-degree with this, but it's pretty easy where you put one catwalk down on the outside of your turn, and you hold control, just like the others, and you turn it 1 for 10 degrees. And then you can zoom it 2. And then you can just keep holding control, and you snap it on, zoom 2, snap on 2, 2, 2, 2. And the great thing about this is you can very quickly kind of see where your road's going to go. So you can attach onto the end, and you say, well, is that where I want it to go? Is that going to clip with what I don't want it to clip with? If not, you can erase it and maybe extend out further at a much quicker pace than you can with the other 2 methods. So it's really, really good in that regard. But there's other benefits for it, which we'll talk about later. From the demonstration roads that I created earlier, almost all of it's done with catwalk, the catwalk method. So as we can see, it's very easy to put together very quickly. So for roads, this is a great method for most roads. But The two methods we're going to show, the quick method works really well with this. The advanced method you can use with any of these to make nice pillared rows. The next step, let's talk about actually doing the pillars. We'll start with the straight roads. Let me extend this one out a little bit. Now, to get pillars on our roads, there's one good way to do it. There's probably other ways, but this is the way I find the best, is we're actually going to use beams. You can use painted or steel, and you want to start from the top of the road where it's hanging off on the corner or on the edge right here. Don't want to start on the side here. You could do this. It's just going to change the position of the pillar, and you could do it on the bottom too if you so desire. In this case, you can just do 4 meters. You could do 8 meters. It doesn't matter. The whole point is we want to start flush on a foundation, and then we can attach the pillar at the end of the beam. At this point, we can get rid of it. We can set zooping on, and we can just do our beams down to the end of the road. I'll do that one more time over here. So we'll do 1. 8 meters, fine. Get rid of the beam, and our pillars go on. Straight roads, super easy. And if you were starting a curve, you could just get rid of those. Now, the next part is inclines. Inclines are slightly different. Whether you use the double ramps or single ramps because you want to update the bottom, doesn't matter. Now, with inclines, we need to use not default mode, but diagonal mode. Because if you try to use default mode, and usually you have to get rid of this because you can't attach beams to incline roads. So you need to have some room here. So if you try to do default, you can't go up diagonally. That's one of the default could go left, right, forward, back, up and down. So you have those 3 axes of working with it. Diagonal mode gives us basically the same thing, but we can now move in diagonal directions. In this case, we want to snap to the road, but we're just going to snap up the road. It doesn't really matter where. You just want to make sure that you are snapping evenly. You don't want to be down further. You don't want to be down further or up higher. You want to be at a snap point. So usually I go to where the foundation ends. Now we repeat that at the top, doing the same thing, but we're going to go down 1. And you might ask why, and I will show you why. As we start our pillars at the bottom, we can get rid of the beam. We start our pillars at the top. Now when we go down and we go up, you're going to find there's a gap. And that's simply because the foundations are not 8 meters in length on the incline. They're actually a little longer, so it doesn't match up. So you just find a point anywhere you want, and you just overlap on one of them, and that seals it off. And then you can delete the top and the bottom one, and your incline is done. And then you can seal off the point there. And we just repeat on the other side. As I said, you can do your clip anywhere you want. You'll find your personal preferences. Now, you might be asking about these gaps. Now, we are able to deal with a lot of curves and smooth everything out, but unfortunately in the vertical space, I haven't quite figured it out yet. So I have a couple methods that I use to deal with it. I'll put a beam like this in it. That's one method. Or I'll just extend these out normally. That's what I do now. That kind of covers it. But I'll explain why the problem is later. That covers the straights. That covers the inclines. Now we got to cover curves. And we'll use our curve that we built over here as our example. This one we did with the catwalk method. And there's a very good reason. This is what I would call the quick method, because the catwalk method with 10-degree turns makes this really, really easy. So we're going to continue to use beams, and we're going to use it in default mode again here. And what we want is to do 8 meter. On the outside, we're going to do 8-meter beams. Just like that. Now, you can come from this side, you can come from this side. Realize that you're going to have clipping foundations, and this might affect the angle that your beam goes. So you might end up going the wrong angle, so you just got to reset. You can either do it from here, you can't be attached to here, because then you're only going to do that. So you got to make sure that you are downwards, and we go down 8 meters. You might see 7.999 or 8.0 or 8.00003. That's okay. That's 8 meters. Default only really works in 8 meters. And we just do that for each foundation. 8 meters all the way down. Just like that. Then we'll grab a pillar. You can go into default mode. And we're just going to attach a pillar onto the end of each one of these beams. That is not attaching on the end. We can start from over here. These are 8-meter beams, so we don't have to do too much thinking. So you just delete the beam. You can put zoom mode on, 2 over. You delete your starting pillar and beam of the next one, and then you do another 2. You can see the outside is pretty much perfect seam. There's a minor overlap, but it actually looks pretty good. on the inside. We're clean. There's a little Z fighting here, but that's not always the case. We can just continue on. So we delete our starter one, and the next beam, do 2. 2. Hey, Steven, what are you doing here? I'm trying to do a roads video. And from there, the nice thing about the outside is it lines up perfectly. And we're good. And it looks beautiful on the outside. And the great thing is, if you use this method of turning, all of your outside turns will be this easy. The inside turns can be a little bit more challenging. But with a 3-lane road, like we have here, they're actually pretty easy with this method. And they look pretty good. So in this case, you're going to still use default. But it's going to be 6 meters on the first one for the inside. And then we're going to do... This is where it's going to get slightly more challenging with the overlapping. They're greater overlapping, so it's kind of got to get the right angles. And this isn't wrong. You need to be intersecting. So what I find usually is you need to come out a little bit, and it's going to be a 4-meter beam. And this should overlap like this. It should be a nice, clean overlap. It's going to cross, but it's going to be clean, and you're going to see basically 4 meters. We're seeing 3.9991, but that is 4 meters. I may have not said enough 9s, but... we can just continue to do this down the line. If you run into a situation where you can't quite get the snapping point to where you got the right angle, you can delete the next foundation and then just do this. As long as you're getting 4 meters, it's fine. And then you can put the foundation back. And the last one, again, will be 6. Works pretty well. Then we're going to do the same thing. Just put them on the end. So that's it. For these 6-meter ones, we can't just go out 8 meters with the perf. That's just not going to work. So... you need to actually put your beams facing the inside. And that way it'll overlap and you can do this. It'll extend past, but if you do a normal one, you'll overlap and it's clean. So the rest of the turn is going to be a little different. This is the same as over here. We'll need to actually start from here and go in. You can delete the beam and overlap. The rest of the turn is basically like the last one. So we'll put a pillar on the end of each beam. And once we've done that, we can delete our single beam, carry it over, delete the starter, delete the beam, carry it over, delete the starter, delete the beam, rinse and repeat. And as we can see, this does have slightly more crossover clipping than the outside does, but from a distance, you can't really tell. So when you back up and you're looking at it from a distance, if these roads can't even really notice it. So this is why I refer this to the quick method. It's really good for what it is. You can make a lot of pretty roads really fast just using this method, and you don't have to do a lot of work. It's clean, it works. Now, if you saw the starter roads and you're wondering how I got the dots through, or the dashes through them, you'll notice you get a lot of clipping. This is really annoying. Really annoying. But when you get far enough away, if you're at a distance, it's hardly noticeable. You can't really see it. So if this is something outside a place you're standing all the time, you know, maybe don't do this. Straight lines are a little bit better. They're a little bit better. But otherwise, if it's nearby, you're going to be somewhere you're going to stare at a lot, you can always just not put anything. But if they're going to be away from you most of the time, like most of my roads, at least where I'm going to have curves, you won't notice this. That covers the quick method. You can make a lot of 3-lane roads. That works very well with 3 foundation width roads using the catwalk method anywhere. As I stated, all of the 3-lane roads here were done using the catwalk method. It's really easy to sort of navigate your pathway around trees and other obstacles using the catwalk method because you can template it really fast. And as you can see, trying to do the curves for the pillars, they actually look really good, and it's really simple. Now, we have an advanced method that you're going to need for just about anything else to kind of clean it up. And we're going to show an example right now. Let's say we wanted to do an off-ramp, like you see over there, which is not 3 lanes. You can do 3 lanes, absolutely. There's a couple ways to do an off-ramp the way I did them over there. I have 2 methods. One, you can use and both methods actually use the catwalk. So you put one catwalk down, and the same thing, you can actually For your turn, you can turn whatever angle you want. These are all 10-degree turns. And with 10-degree turns, and you continue to use the catwalk method, it's very easy to loop around, be perpendicular, parallel, as you want. So you can easily just point out, find a 40 or 50-degree angle that you want the exit to be in. And then you just attach a foundation to it. You can use a triangle if you want for... I didn't do that as asphalt. You can use a triangle too. That is one way to do it. And then from there, you can just start building the off-ramp. There is another way to do it, which it can be a little cleaner if you like a little less clipping. So you can do the catwalk. You will snap a foundation to it, just like this, and you can hold control and turn the foundation like this. You'll notice that half the foundation, the corners of the foundation line up with the edge. This is a 45-degree exit. You can actually, once you get out here to one foundation out, and we have just the corner touching, we can actually use those triangles. Let me steal one from over here. And they will not actually clip. So then this is a really nice way if you want to minimize the clipping on your roads for these exits. The only difference here is this is 45 degrees. And if you continue to use the catwalk method, realize that you're only doing 10-degree turns. So if you want to get to like a perfect 90 degrees or 180, you can't actually do that because you'll get to 95 or 185. So you'll actually need to use something like the DC method to get a 5-degree turn in there to sort of close it off back to a 10-degree increments. Just keep that in mind. If you're not caring about going parallel or perpendicular, I can actually demonstrate that with this turn over here. I started up here. And I did actually do this as a 45. This was an earlier version before I got the clipping out, but it is actually a 45-degree turn. And when I built the off-ramp all the way, or actually it's an on-ramp all the way, you'll notice that I came all the way around and it's a little bit past perpendicular. If I had done one click less, it would have actually gone a little bit this way. So the only way I could correct it was by adding a single 5-degree turn here, and that gave me this side, which was perpendicular. And I just did this for fun. It doesn't really matter. But I'm just saying, if you needed to do perpendicular or parallel runs after you do a circle, then you just keep that in mind if you use the 45-degree method. But you can use any turn you want to clean it up. These are great ways to have off-ramps. You can exit at any angle. But let's do the curves for these. So let's say we want to curve to the right. So we're going to start on the left side. That's our outside turn. And we're going to click 10 degrees to the right. Do our 2. You could do more with the advanced method. But by sticking with the 10 degrees, your outside method will remain simple and easy to use. And the outside would be the same, as I pointed out, for the 3 foundation. Just create your 8-meter beams. And then, of course, you could do a ramp down to where you want to go. We just can't do ramps and turning at the same time. The geometry just doesn't work out. So this would be the exact same as we did over there. So we're going to just move on. So the inside turn. So we no longer at a 3 foundation width, so it doesn't quite work the same. We can find that we can do 6 or 7, but if we start doing turns like this, it doesn't always match up the way we want it to. It could be 3, it could be 4. 5's fine. That a 5 meter, if a pillar is only 4 meters, and we have 5-meter ones and stuff like that. And you'll notice how the corners aren't necessarily nicely clipping over each other. So, and we'll demonstrate that. So we'll put our pillars down, same way. And for these short, flat ones, we need to do both ends again because we need to overlap. So we do one this way and one this way, or you can do 2 that way. It's fine too, but this is a ramp, so we have to get rid of this one. So we get rid of this, and we can do 1 beam. If we try to go further, it's going to have a very ugly crossing, which is not what we want. So we're just going to continue on. And you'll have other things that have small gaps or big gaps. And we have to just clean those up. And if this is an end piece, so we'll start over here. And clip it in that way. So now we have this problem. We have these gaps. You might have small gaps. You might have big gaps. Whatever you end up with, we can deal with it now. So the way we're going to do this is we don't like any corners like this. We don't like this. We want them nice and clean like our other turns. So we'll start with the first problem. We'll take this one out of the equation. We want to connect this end of this pillar to this pillar. So we're going to take this one out. So remember we talked about beams. Default, it only works in meters and it only has a couple directions that we can deal with. Up, down, left, right, forward, back. We've covered diagonal mode, but we don't need for this. And there's freeform mode. And freeform mode can have any length at all. It does not matter. You can go anywhere with it pretty much. It doesn't have to be in meters. It can be anywhere we want. The other thing to keep in mind with freeform is that when we have odd lengths, there's a side we can really snap to, and there's a side we technically can't snap right to. So this is like 4.4. The side we started with, you can see that we can actually line up and snap to it right on the edge. It's good. And we can move, when we're trying to snap to the beam, we can snap in 1 meter increments. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the end. But if we try to turn this around and try to snap to the other side, you'll notice we can't actually snap to it. That was that 0.42 past the meter that we didn't have. So if we tried to snap to it, you'll notice that we're not actually snapping to the end. We're not getting that other part. So when I talk about our snapping point on the beam, try to realize it's wherever we started the freeform beam and not the end of the freeform beam. And that comes important here because we need to do both sides. One more thing to keep in mind while we're working on this, we want to work with the outside of the turn, not the inside. We want to work with the long side of this pillar turn. If you work with the inside, it's not going to work correctly. Here's what we're going to do. We need to snap this beam to this corner of the pillar. You don't want to attach it to the foundation, not up the top, not up here. You want to do it right in the middle. So you have your cursor over the corner of this pillar right here. And as we click on it, you can see that the middle of this beam is touching the corner. So we're in the middle of the pillar, touching right on the corner. In this case, we're going to drag it across, do this, click it to the other side at the same spot. So you should be over the middle of the pillar. And as we can see, the center of the beam is touching both corners. This is what we want. So now, we started on the left, so that's our snapping side. We're going to switch to default mode. We're going to move over 4 meters. 1, 2, 3, 4. The size of a pillar. And then we're going to go out this way. It doesn't matter. You can go 1, you can go 10. Doesn't matter. 3. And now we can actually clip. We go 1 meter out from our beam. So we snapped here. We went out here. We go out 1 meter. And we now snap to there in default mode. And we come back to the middle of the pillar. This is 4 meters. It says 3.999976, but that's 4 meters. So our beam should be interacting with the middle of the pillar in parallel with our freeform beam originally. And once we got that, we can actually attach a pillar on the end and then delete all this. And then we start from the right side and repeat the same process. We snap to this side, turn on freeform mode, snap to that side. We switch back to default mode and we count over 4 meters. 1, 2, 3, 4. We go out 1 or 2 meters, snap 1 meter out, bring it back 4 meters. And then we can attach a pillar onto that end, delete all our work. And now we can link 1 pillar in this way and 1 pillar in this way and delete our 2 pillars there. And now look at that. We have a clean connection. We are overlapping. We are. But from a distance, it's a nice, clean. There's no gaps. And then we can just repeat down the line. Now, you could do this again here if you wanted to do more work. You could do each and every one of these down the line and just connect, connect, connect. But in this case, this is already done, so I'm just going to go ahead and have short, long, and I'll just do another one here really fast. So we'll start from the left, freeform, the cross, go back to default, 1, 2, 3, 4, go out, come back, add our pillar, delete our work, freeform from the right to the left, back to default, 1, 2, 3, 4, we go out, we go back, pillar on the right, delete our work, bring the pillar in, and there we go. And then we could probably just delete this one. And here's where we might run into an issue. This is actually pretty small. If we try to do this, we're not actually going to be able to fit a pillar in here because it needs to be greater than 4 meters. If it's less than 4 meters, this won't work. So in this case, since this is less than the length of a pillar, we're going to delete this one and just do it from here. And now we have a nice clean inside turn. And this will work with just about any angle. It's just to keep in mind that it needs to be greater than 4 meters. And you need to also try avoiding being really close to a 4 meter mark or an 8 meter mark. If it's like 4.1 or 7.9 or 8.1, you may find a situation where the outside turn, if you get to that point where it's like just over 8 meters, the outside turn or something, you could end up with the pillars being like really close together, and then the game, if you try to like fill it in, the game thinks it's just overlapping and it's not going to let you. It's going to throw a hard clipping thing. So if you run into that issue, just adjust your size between your pillars a little bit. And that's it. That covers pretty much anything except the merging part. And the merging is easy. It's when you're coming at any angle. Let's get rid of this. It's the same as creating a ramp, is that we're just going to kind of clip in from where we're coming into. But the one key thing you have to be dealing with is height. If you have different grids, especially if you're using the world grid, it doesn't always match up. We look at that. That was both clipped on the world grid, and you'll notice it's not actually a full foundation in height. So if you run into situations like this where you have two different grids that might have been on the world grid, they could end up being at slightly different heights, and you're just going to have to fill in those gaps, maybe using a 1 meter ramp or something along the way somewhere before you do the merge. So that's just the one thing to keep in mind. But other than that, yeah, you just merge it in, and you can use the pillars just like anything else. And any points that you need to do something interesting with the pillar, you can either like stack a pillar like this to merge it in, or also you can like bring the end of your thing out to where you want the end of the pillar to be, and then you just clip back. So you just find where it is perfect for you. As a final note, the beams on the side of the roads provide additional benefits because unlike walls, we can only attach a sign to the side of the wall. On these beams, you can actually put signs on the beams, on the sides of the beams. And two, you can actually attach more beams and create interesting little effects like these highway signs that I've playing around created just for funsies. Here's my wrong way, did not enter sign. I did some turn signs, couldn't find a good symbol for it that worked. Oh, and the one last thing I forgot to cover was why we can't fix these. At least I haven't figured it out. And that's because when we go and do our beam for the outside, the problem is when we go to our standard default 1, 2, 3, 4 and we try to go out, we can't actually go perpendicular. The default mode only goes up and down. Unlike when we're on the left and right and front and back plane, where it'll go perpendicular to the beam no matter where you are, the up and down plane, it only goes up and down. It won't actually go perpendicular. And this creates a problem when you try to go back to the center. And that is kind of why, and even if we try, freeform mode or whatever, we can't quite, it doesn't really change anything. As you can see, it doesn't really get rid of it. So that becomes the underlying problem with this method. There might be a way to do it. I just haven't quite figured it out yet. If anyone figures it out, feel free to come to my Discord and tell me. I'll do a follow-up video, and I would gladly credit you with figuring it out. And that's the same for the undersides. So my only current solution is to just extend out the flat version on the top and bottom. If you keep your roads consistent, it'll look good. And that's it. That's pretty much everything to do with the roads. This was a nice little demonstration that I threw together. You can do a lot of cool stuff. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. You can come to my Discord. You can message me. If I don't answer right away, don't worry. I'm around. I will answer you. I will try to leave this save file in my Discord if you'd like to if you'd like to download it and log it and just check out the roads that I created here for fun, or look at the signs and anything in detail. Anyway, that's it. Enjoy. I'd love to see screenshots of your roads when you do them. Hope you enjoyed this guide. If you did, be sure to leave the like button, leave a comment down below, subscribe for more, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.